All right, so what I'd like to show you today is just kind of the end of Chapter 4, some other graphs you can make besides histograms. The first is what's called a stem and leaf plot. We start with a vertical line here, and on one side we put what's called the stem. This is usually the tens place. And on the other side would be our leaves for the stem and leaf plot. So just a pretty basic one. You'll notice I go from 62 all the way up to 83. So I'm going to have 60s, 70s, and 80s. So each number that's here as a stem is the tens place. And then what I'm going to put on this side is just the ones. So for example, I have a 62. I do want to go in order here. So I have a 62. So I just put a 2. And as I read this across, 62, that's 62. I have another 62, so I'm going to put another 2. So each 2 represents 62. Okay, I have some 63s. Looks like 2 of those. 3, 3. Then I also have a 65, 62, 67, and 269. And that's all the 60s. So now I would move to the 70s. And I have a 70, 71, 72. Now, you might notice that I'm spacing these out perhaps just a little bit funny. That's because I really want these numbers to line up so that when I look straight across, I can tell that right now, if we stopped, there were 4 of each of those. So I really want them to take up the same amount of space. Sorry, a little 3 and 5 there. All right, so I got 72s, and it looks like all that's left is that 83. So this is a stem and leaf plot. Now, if you tilt your head, you could kind of imagine that this is like a histogram. Now you see why I would try to take up the same amount of space. So this histogram, if I tilt my head, would be skewed to the high end, so that would be skewed to the right. So we still can make observations about our stem and leaf plot, similar to how we would a histogram. All right, but that's not the only way to make a stem and leaf plot. We could get a little bit more creative. I'm still going to set it up with my 10s and my 1s, but this time I'm going to give myself 2 6s, 2 7s, and 2 8s. Just like in histogram, we can change the bins. In this case, my first 6 would be 60 through 64. My next 6 would be anything 65 through 69. It just lets me spread the data out just a little bit. So if I quickly, hopefully quickly, set this up, I had 62, 63s, and then the 65 would come down on the next line, 65, 67, and 69. Then we had our 70, 71, and 72, and our 83. So again, we just get a little bit of a different picture here. Now we see that there is a gap. Notice right here. Again, if I'm pretending this is a histogram, this right here, this would be a gap. So that's your basic stem and leaf plot. Very important that every stem and leaf plot contains a key where we just acknowledge that 6/3 would stand for 63. And of course, I'm going to include a unit. This would be inches because we're talking height. So make sure you include a key. All right, another possibility for graphing is what's called just a basic dot plot. This is where every piece of data gets a dot on the graph. So I'm going to start this at 62, and I'm going to go by 2s here just to make sure I have enough room. And I don't want to label them all, but I know I'm counting by 2s. So in this case, when I see 63, well, that's between the 62 and 64, so I just put a dot where 63 would be. 83, way up here. 69, 70, and I like to start above the bar, as you see here. 65, 72, 67, and hopefully all my dots would be the same size. Now notice I'm going to have a 72 again. So this time I just draw that 72 above the previous 72. That way you can see that there were 2 pieces of data with that same value. There's a second 69 and 67 right here, and 62, 63, and 62 again. Sorry about that little smudge. All right, so that is a basic dot plot. And of course, I would label this. These are heights, and hopefully include a unit of measure like inches. So again, you could imagine this kind of like a histogram. So we would notice that we have, wow, by this scale, this little 83 out here could possibly be labeled an outlier. So we can still look for those same basic SOCs from these different types of graphs. So again, we have stem and leaf plots and dot plots.